We all have a story to tell. For the last 5 years, the Music Legacy Project has been about the work of helping young people find their story and then share it with the world. Every year, a handful of eager students comes to us with incredible talent, but little idea on how to direct it. We take that promise and polish it through workshops, discussions, and guided practice. Over weeks and months, they learn more about the career path of a musician, covering topics like branding, event production, public relations, email etiquette and outreach, social media, and more. The students begin to learn what it means to be a professional. Guests from different sectors of the Austin music industry drop in to share their expertise and offer key insights. Mentorship and one-on-one tutoring is provided via partnerships with organizations like Anthropos Arts. At the end of this process, we find a more informed and confident young leader in music with more tools and a broader network at their disposal. The future of music in Austin can't get where it's going without knowing where it started. The legacy they leave behind is up to them. We all have a story to tell.
All right. Hey, y'all. Welcome to the E4 Youth Virtual Talk. My name is Jaleisha, and I'm a digital docent here at E4 Youth. I hope you really liked our video. It is for our Music Legacy Project. Our music legacy project is for students who want to go into the music industry. So if you guys are really interested in that, please feel free to go to our website at e4youth.org. We also have a creative leadership academy for students going into the creative field, whether it's in journalism, strategy, graphic design, advertising, and so many more creative jobs or technology-based jobs. We give students the opportunity to explore those things and to gain skills in those things so that they're able to be the best that they can be whenever they go out into the job world. Yeah, but for sure. So for today's virtual talk, we have Kaitlyn Haib. And so just to introduce her more, Kaitlyn Haib is a senior strategist at RGA. She works primarily on racetrack in Texas Capital Bank. She is one of the thousands, if not millions, of women born in the early 1900s with the name variation of Kaitlyn, Caitlin with a K, Kaitlyn with a C, Kaitlyn with an IN, Kaitlyn with a C and IN, Kaitlyn with a YN. Hers is with YN. So despite her generic marker on the world, she has found a unique place in advertising, specializing in brand strategy, communications, planning, quantitative market research. And in fact, she is certified in survey design, programming, and analysis with Qualtrics and leading research and experience software. So Kaitlyn graduated from the University of Texas at Austin, gang. Y'all know, with a degree in advertising and a minor in business. After graduation, she started as a strategy intern at T3 Austin, where she worked her way up to an associate strategist on Staples and Home Depot. Then she was a strategist on waste management and enterprise before moving down the road to continue her career at RGA. When Kaitlyn is not working, Kaitlyn is reading books about spirituality, meditating with crystals, going to therapy, eating dolmas at Whole Foods, or shopping at the Container Store. But with all of that being said, welcome Kaitlyn to the screen.
Thank you. That's surreal. Your own bio read out loud. You did a great job.
Yes. Well, hi, welcome. I hope your day is going well.
Thank you. Welcome to my kitchen. I will be drinking tea, but someone told me that if you put chia seeds in your tea, it amplifies the hydration. And so I thought it'd be such a good idea. But now that I'm drinking it, I realize chia seeds are really small and can get stuck in tea really easily. So if at any point of this whole thing anyone sees just like junk in my tea, please tell me. That's what I'm gonna do.
I'll let you know in the chat. That way, I ain't gotta expose you to the world. Because once I say it, everybody gonna look right at your tea.
Good point. We don't want that. Well, yeah, my name's Kaitlyn, and I am 26. I'm a senior strategist at RGA. I love doing these sort of things because I was the college student that was very stressed out. I think UT is its own pressure cooker of competition and expectations, and there's always someone better or more accomplished than you. And so I was definitely prey to that mindset of, oh, I got to be better, I got to do more. And now that I'm actually in the industry, I really wish I could take a time machine and go back and just tell myself to chill out. Any people of all sorts of backgrounds end up in advertising, and there's really no right way of living your life in any regard, but especially when it comes to ending up where I am. So I hope today helps you guys understand advertising more, helps you understand what strategists do more, gives you some insight into what RGA is, and most importantly, it just helps you feel more calm. Jaleisha and I have been talking all week about what we think people want to hear today. And it's hard because my colleague, Amber, she's also a senior strategist. She spoke 2 weeks ago on this platform, and she did such an incredible job that Jaleisha and I were like, okay, what can you talk about that's different? And one of the things we decided we should really kind of double down on today was just normalizing fear, normalizing stress, really helping you guys understand exactly how I got to where I am, like step by step. Exactly what you need in your portfolios or on your resume, helping you debunk getting internships, just all the sort of things that people who are in school really want to know, or at least what I wanted to know. So yeah, let's get started. Oh, wow, it happened for me. Thank you. So hi again. Basically everything I just said was what I was going to say on this slide, so we can jump ahead to the next one. There we go. Okay, so RGA is a really interesting place to work because there's not a very succinct way of summarizing everything we do. To some people, we're an ad agency. To other people, we're business consultants. So we're kind of all of it. We have been around for so many years, really evolving what we do every about 9 years just to stay ahead of the curve. And as of today, we define ourselves as a place that designs businesses and brands for a more human future. So we recognize that when you're a brand talking to people, you're doing just that, you're talking to people. And so when we're building brands, we really want to make brands and businesses more prepared to speak to humans by being more human-centric. And again, Amber did such a good job of explaining a lot about RGA, so I want to go through this quickly. But for those of you who weren't there, RGA does have offices around the world, which if you're interested in getting into advertising, I highly, highly recommend doing everything you can to end up at an agency like RGA, just because there's so much opportunity. If you start at the Austin office, but one day you want to move to Australia, they really help you get to where you want to be. Also, with offices all over the world, we get really, really big clients. So all you've probably heard of before. We've done projects across the gamut, whether it's building apps or helping, for example, there was something we did with Air Jordan and Nike, and it's kind of our piece de resistance project, where basically we worked with Snapchat to create a filter of Michael Jordan doing his classic dunk. And there was a specific place in New York where you could use the geolocation of the Snapchat filter, and anyone who used the filter was given access to buy the latest Air Jordans, and it sold out in a matter of minutes. People were given their shoes in less than 2 hours, and so we really helped work with building the filter, working with the shipping and logistics company to get people their shoes. It's just such a cool project, and I wish I had worked on it, but that's an example of something that we do at RGA. I do want to help you guys better understand what I do day to day. I know when I was a student and people would come and speak, I'd always be like, okay, but what do you do? This is great, but what do you do when you sit down at your desk every day? So I will give you a preview that in the rest of my deck, I will be going through exact projects I've worked on, helping you understand what strategy is. But before I go really hard on strategy, I know that the audience we have today might not even know what a strategist is or even advertising in general. So I wanted to kind of back it up a little and help you explain not only what I do, but with what everyone at my office does. So here's a dog, just a moment to kind of take a deep breath, picture where you are in your life right now. I also really want this time for all of us to just be a sec for us to catch our breath and just like, everything's good. So let me get started on explaining to you what this industry does. This is a very, very, very watered down, not watered down, but simplified version of what goes on in our office. There are people who will be left off of this list, and people who will be like, wait, that's not exactly how it works, but this is the best way I could summarize exactly what happens at an ad agency. So first we have account managers, and these are people who their whole job is to make relationships with the client. So not only on a personal level, but also whenever a client needs a project or a campaign, this is the person that receives that information from the client, helps really understand what they want, and then delivers that to the rest of the team saying, hey, for this example, let's talk about a campaign. Hey, the client really wants a campaign for holiday 2020. They really want to talk about their new product, but they also want people to know about their brand. So Strategy, will you please help us write a brief? Before Strategy gets started on their work, producers really step in early on. And these are the people, they're sometimes called project managers. And these are the people who manage anything that has to do with the budding campaign. So they help decide who's going to work on it, when are deadlines throughout the entire process, how much is it going to cost. So they really keep all of our ducks in a row, and none of us could live without producers. They put meetings on our calendars, help make sure we get our ish done on time. And then comes me and my team. So strategists take the information from the account manager of what the client wants, and then we do research in the world of, okay, what are some other holiday campaigns that we've seen in the past that we really love? What are some really things popular in culture right now that would resonate with our target audience? Who is our target audience? What do they want? What are they into? What are they sick of? What are some of their grievances, their struggles, their pain, and really understanding people so that we don't put our creatives in a situation where they've created a beautiful campaign that doesn't land with the right people. So we take all of the research we've done, all of the insights we've found, and we use it to write a brief. And a brief is just basically saying, okay, it's a document or a deck or whatever you want. And it's basically saying, here's what the client wants. Here's what we've learned about the world. Here are some directions we think we could go creatively. But really, it's up to you guys. So we're here to help, but our job as strategists is really to be a springboard, because creatives, as I'm sure most of you, when you think of advertising, you think of these people. They are the people who actually make the campaign. So they think through, what is the actual campaign wrapper? So what is the theme of the campaign? What is the overarching tagline? And then they also come up with the individual ads, the individual components that make up the wider campaign. So most people would think that's the end. That's all we have at ad agencies. But there's actually quite a few more people. We also have developers. So if you're into coding or building apps or filters or databases, they honestly do so much I don't even know. So I'm probably not articulating it the best. But if you're into computers, we have a ton of developers in-house who help us bring some more technical things to life. The example I was talking about at the beginning of Snapchat and working with the logistics company, we have to rely on devs to make that all happen. We can theorize magic in our brains, but they actually make the magic happen, and it's really incredible. After the developers, there are also media planners. So depending on what agency you would work at one day, you could have a media planning team in-house, so in your actual agency. Media planners are people who decide where the ads will go. Like, will it go on Snapchat? Will it go on Instagram? Will it go on TV? They decide when they will run, and they also kind of help see how things performed. There's a little bit of gray area here because sometimes the media team will just see how things performed from a media standpoint, because we also have analysts who do a number of things, and one of them being assessing how a campaign performed creatively. So taking all the media insight and performance data and really understanding what creative did well and what creative do we maybe not want to move forward with. A very real example from my life is, say you put say you have a new product coming out and you put the price of that product on your actual ad, does that actually drive more demand or not? And usually we don't know until we actually have the numbers at the end of a campaign. So there are so many people, like I said, who have been left off. We have people who manage our office who are the unsung heroes. They definitely make sure that we're always having fun and our office is clean and that people, their interviews are set up at the right time. We also have PR. So our PR team makes sure that RGA's name is getting out into the world. You'll have specific PR agencies that do that for brands, but we have one to help us kind of get our name out there. They actually set this opportunity up for me today. So they are also integral to what we do. There's a million people with very specific job titles. It's a very amorphous industry where you can kind of make your own way. But the biggest takeaway from all of this is that, yes, in theory, it's a chain where it's like account gives the baton to producers who give the baton all the way down, but that's not the reality. The reality is it's very messy. There's a lot of back and forth and make progress, take steps back, creatives doing research, strategists are giving creative lines. It's for better or for worse, it can be kind of messy, but that's what's beautiful about it is if you start advertising out of school as, say, a developer or an analyst, you're not stuck in that forever. One of my favorite stories, we have someone at our agency and he started as an analyst and he was able to switch to copywriting. So that's kind of a really big takeaway here is because we all help each other out, you'll get to kind of taste a little bit of everyone's job and you can kind of really figure out your own path as your career progresses. So I'm going to take a pause and just make sure, okay. I've never done this, so I wanted to make sure things weren't on fire when I was sharing my screen, but it looks like we're all still here.
You're good. And even if you want to see what other people are saying, okay, you can click over from private at the comments.
Yeah, we do have Q&A at the end. So I'm going to just make sure we get through this so that we have ample time to make this fab, y'all. I want you guys to really get the most out of this, so I'll keep going. The next piece I wanted to talk about, as I promised, is I really wanted to talk about what I do. So you now understand in theory what I do as far as how my piece fits into the bigger machine, but what do I actually do every day, which is a question I still ask myself a lot. But I wanted to explain this to you in the confines of my main client, which is Racetrack. I am from California, so I've never grown up anywhere with a racetrack, nonetheless convenience stores that are nice. Where I grew up, and even in Austin, convenience stores are kind of just stores connected to gas stations where you can get like Sour Patch Kids and soda. It's never this experience. But in the South, it really is something that the stakes are higher, competition is more, convenience stores put a lot more effort into their stores being beautiful and inviting, and one of those being Racetrack. So I, again, didn't know anything about convenience stores coming into this job, but now I feel like I could get a PhD in it because you just learn so much about the inner workings of the business. And the first project I want to talk to you guys about that most strategists in their career will touch is a branding project. So full transparency, the branding project for what I'm about to walk through was pretty much baked by the time I joined the team in January of 2019. But I did help finalize it and create the brand book and really make sure that the brand continues to live on. So I'll start at the beginning. Racetrack came to RGA and they wanted help re-articulating their brand. So thinking of a new way to bring Racetrack to life, think of a new way to talk about themselves in a way that would really capture audiences. And so RGA did a deep dive, the strategy team did a deep dive on the Racetrack audience and figured out this really cool insight that the Racetrack consumer, the average Racetrack consumer, they don't have normal lives. They aren't working 9 to 5s. They aren't eating breakfast in the morning or dinner at night. They're kind of eating when they can eat because their jobs are so, they're just different. Like they'll have graveyard shifts or part-time or kind of working very weird swing shifts. And so what we found is that our consumers often come in for not only food at weird times, but very weird combinations. We would see people eating pizza and donuts or coffee and hot dogs at night in just very weird combinations. And so we thought, okay, let's lean into that and let's celebrate that we are the place where people can get whatever they want whenever they want it. And so we dubbed our core consumer the Better Than Average Joe, because they're just salt of the earth, good people who are just doing their jobs, looking for good, delicious food, and they just don't want to be judged for the choices they make. And that all helped us create this brand platform of whatever gets you going. So it's been really fun to make sure that that brand platform we created for them is articulated in all of our ads, all of our communications, really helping consumers understand that we are the place that's non-judgmental. We have whatever you want. And so it was a really fun project to get to see and now keep alive. I mentioned that I helped build a brand book. So what that means is once you're on the team that does all the research and understands exactly how they can pivot a brand and re-articulate it to the world, you now want all those findings and thoughts in a book so that anyone who joins the team, either at RGA or at Racetrack, can pick up the book and know exactly what this brand is about. And so that's what, when I started, we just got started on really making sure all of our strategies and taglines and visual guidelines and everything we wanted were in one place. So I'm going to keep moving, but if you guys have any particular questions about branding, we can talk about it at the end, because for most of you, this could be the first time you've ever heard of this. And I can tell you that was the most basic crash course. I left out a lot, so we can talk about it at the end. The next thing that I do a lot of on Racetrack is campaign work. So that example I gave you at the beginning of what happens when a client wants a campaign and how strategy fits into that, that is very true to what I do often. So for example, we had a campaign where we really wanted to encourage people to get different combos at Racetrack to help continue this idea of whatever gets you going. And so we did some research, and people really like dating shows. We're a very dating-centric culture, especially with dating apps. And it's not a strange phenomenon to think of different food items kind of pairing up and falling in love. And before I joined RGA, we had done a campaign similar to this for Racetrack, and it had done very well. And so we decided to bring it back and revive it, and we created our own dating show. And so my piece of this was getting on a piece of paper, okay, the last time we ran this campaign, it did great. Here's some cultural insights about dating and dating shows and what people want to see, especially in our Better Than Average Show group. Here are some product pairs that would be really funny together. And here are some ideas that the creative team can use to kind of jump off of. And the creative team came back with this game show love moment called Slice of Love, and it's just hilarious. I highly recommend just remembering, if you're in advertising, to have fun as much as possible, because the fun campaigns really do stick out in your mind, and they're just, you can see there's just so much creative freedom here and so many ways you can take it. All right, and this is my last project I'm going to walk you guys through, and then I'm going to talk about exactly how I got my job, and then I'm going to stop talking about myself and answer questions. So the last Racetrack project example I wanted to give was food innovation. This is very different from anything I've talked about yet today. It's something I didn't even know ad agencies could be a part of, but it has been so rewarding. We realized at RGA that we wanted to have a bigger hand in helping Racetrack pick their food so that our marketing could be more seamless. We knew that we could make campaigns around food products that we had helped invent. And since Racetrack is known for like crazy food and whatever gets you going, we really wanted to help them amp that up. And they're doing such a great job, and they're letting us really be a part of coming up with new food ideas, testing it with consumers, and eventually bringing it to life in different campaigns. This photo is a shot that we did for a campaign earlier this year for their Texas toast sandwich. You can see it's just wild. It's huge. It has sausage on it. It has eggs on it. It's just, Racetrack has food that is just so easy to talk about. And so there's not too much more I can say because we're still in the process, but it has been really interesting as a strategist to actually be a part of coming up with menus and coming up with what a store will sell so that our campaigns later down the road can be more interesting. All right, so how did I get here? You guys know what my job is in relation to other jobs at the agency. You know exactly what kinds of projects I've worked on, and you kind of have an idea of what happens when I sit down at my desk every day. But now, if you're anything like me, you're probably like, okay, great, but how did you do this? So I'll walk you through exactly how my life went. First, I majored in advertising at UT. I actually started as a journalism major. I love learning about people, researching about humanity and psychology, and really understanding what makes people tick. And so journalism felt like a really great path for me. But there was a class that I went to where they had us imagine that a plane had just crashed and we were supposed to interview the family members. And I was just like, I don't know if I want to write about that. And so I had a midlife crisis at the young age of 18, and I switched my major to advertising, which also has a lot of psychology in it. It also has a lot to do with understanding people and really getting to the root of what culture wants. So it was a really great major for me, but you do not need to be an advertising major to work at an advertising agency one day. In fact, a lot of people aren't ad majors. So if you're watching this and you've never heard of this career and now you're interested in it, don't feel like you have to go back to school again or change your major. You will be fine. I also worked at a bagel shop for a lot of college. It was one of those jobs that just humbles you, and it really helps you prepare for anything you do in your career. I woke up at 4 a.m. every day, got there, made the bagels. It was just such a beautiful experience, and I really think that any job experience you have is going to be useful to you. So again, don't tailor your whole career for one job when all the jobs you have, even working in a bagel shop, will prepare you in some way for what you end up doing. So this is where I kind of started getting stressed out. I'd been working at the bagel shop, and people around me at UT were getting their first internships. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I have to get an internship too. And also, the UT ad program is very focused on creative and media and account planning management, but there wasn't classes or a track for me. I felt like it was such a great school and I learned so much, but I really wanted to know more about branding and strategy, and there were only maybe 1 or 2 classes for that. So on top of the pressure from my peers to feel like I had to keep up, I also wanted an internship to like really understand what strategy was and learn more about it. And so I started to try and apply to internships, but it felt like all of them wanted you to have a prior internship. And it was this very like chicken or egg effect where it's like, well, I can't get a job if I've never had a job, and you don't care that I worked at the bagel shop, so what am I supposed to do? And so I started emailing every single small agency in Austin that was very small, and I would email them like, hey, this is who I am. I really want an internship. I will do anything for whatever you want me to do. And one of the agencies on South Congress ended up saying that I could join. Hold on, can you guys still hear me? My neighbor's gardeners just came.
Yeah, we can still hear you, but we can hear them too, though.
Dang it.
It's
okay.
I can hear you.
We're just gonna have to press on and hope that they go away soon. Hold on. We're gonna move. That's what we're gonna do.
That's totally fine. It really be like that. And while she's moving, just so y'all know, she's coming to the end of her slides. Start thinking about questions that you have, and we'll bring them up through the chat whenever she's done.
Cool. Now we're in a dark room, but that's life. Hopefully it's a little quieter. So after I got that first internship that I told you guys about, it was truly an agency of maybe 6 people, and they were all men. So I was the only woman. And I was 19 at the time, maybe 20. And I remember they had an ask to write a radio ad for vaginal atrophy, which is something you don't need to know about, but it happens after menopause. And again, I'm 20, I've never had menopause, and they asked me to write the radio ad because I was the only woman, so of course I had to know what that felt like. So I wrote the radio ad. I was an intern, but it was really cool because I was just kind of the jack of all trades at that agency, and I learned a lot about all the different kinds of disciplines and what I really wanted to do. So I'm really thankful for that experience. But then it was over. And I felt myself again being like, okay, that was cool. I learned a lot, but I don't know where to go next. And so I was at the animal shelter in Austin. And if any of you have been, it's very nice. And everyone there is very, very welcoming. And so I asked one of the people at the front desk, I was like, hey, are you hiring interns? And they're like, oh, you can sign up to be a dog volunteer. And I was like, no, I want to do like the marketing and the social media. I want to be your intern. And so I ended up interviewing with a woman there. And for a year, she and I ran the Instagram, Facebook, all the things for the shelter. And it was such a good experience just learning about social media. And the payoff was amazing because if you succeeded, the dog was adopted. And so there was a lot of great hands-on experiences. But the point of this slide isn't to brag about like, oh, I made it happen. The point is to tell you that there's opportunities everywhere. You just have to get creative. And if you're feeling stuck or overlooked or life is feeling overwhelming, just take a deep breath and know that there's always a spot for you somewhere. And sometimes it's the most beautiful thing that you didn't expect to happen, but it ends up being your favorite memories. So the next slide, this is when I actually started getting internships at agencies. I was at a very similar group that you guys are in at UT. It was like a advertising group, and a woman came in and spoke from an agency that's no longer around, but it was called Enviromedia. And she came in and was speaking about, account management and creative and media. And I think it was just the frustration of already feeling like UT didn't have a big focus on branding or strategists. And now this woman is coming in and she's also ignoring that I raised my hand and I was like, hey, I think strategists are important too. And I was so embarrassed that I had spoken up to her because who did I think I was? But she ended up really liking that I spoke up. And so she hired me to be the strategy intern at that agency. And I was there for a year. And then it was getting close to graduation. I knew that I should go to the job fair, but I really didn't want to because I don't know. It just didn't seem like anywhere that you would actually get a job at. But I knew if I had to beg my parents for rent money at any point in the future, I had to be able to tell them I tried everything. So I went to the UT job fair and I met a woman there and I gave her my resume and I told her, I said, I've had one internship in strategy. I don't know a ton about it, but it's what I want to do. So let me know. And she ended up calling me in for an interview for the strategy internship at T3. And I was there for almost 3 years. I worked up from the strategy intern to associate strategist to strategy level. And it was a really great agency. They're similar to RGA in the sense that they focus on a lot of things like consulting and tech in addition to advertising. So if you guys are interested in what RGA does, I would also implore you to check them out as well. And then finally, I ended up at RGA. I was in a wedding and one of the bridesmaids was the strategy director at RGA and she ended up leaving the company before I started, but they had an opening and she was like, hey, remember when we talked about strategy? I think you'd be really great. You should apply for this. And so I applied and I've been here almost 2 years and I already gloated on and on about how great RGA is at the beginning, but we've come full circle in my life stories. So yeah, I'm going to wrap it up on me. I think the people have left, so it should be a little quieter now and we can tackle some Q&A.
Yeah, that's really dope. And so while they are writing out their comments, I just wanted to ask you a couple of quick questions. During your conversation, you mentioned that you changed careers. And I feel like that's something that like really happens like when you start reflecting on like what do you want to do as a senior. I also came in as a journalist and I'm like, dang, like maybe I want to do something in advertising now, so I want to know like what advice do you have for people who change their career?
Yeah, I think what's important to know is that you can always change your career. I might still change my career. Life is about what you want to do and taking the right steps that are right for you and learning. And I don't know when society decided to tell 18-year-olds that they had to pick their path and stick with it forever. But in my experience, it's just not feasible or true or good for our health. Like if you are lucky and you fall into your passion at 18, that's amazing. But if you're 25, 35, 45, 55, older, and you want to change your career, do it. Like, there's always a way to get to where you want to be. So just don't live life fear-based, and instead live life really looking for what like sets you on fire every morning. I did ask in preparation for today my teammates and also some people on Instagram for some career advice, just because I wanted to make sure that multiple people were able to help y'all out today. So I think this is a good time to say some of those. One of them from someone I know, she said to find something that works hard for you, which I thought was really interesting because we're always told to work hard for where we work, but we're not often taught to take a pause and be like, okay, but is this working hard for me? Not only day to day do you feel comfortable and safe, but also does this make you feel good? And that's really important as you think about changing your career, like what really resonates with you. But also, journalism to advertising is not a huge change. We could use your skills immensely, and it's really just a different kind of lipstick on the same animal, for a better, way to explain it. It's the same thing, so don't feel like you have all this relearning to do. Some other advice that I got was basically just stay you and remember your job is not you. It's funny how I asked for advice and a lot of it was like self-help, but it is important to remember that our jobs are what we do, but it's not who we are. So keep that in mind. As far as advertising goes, because it is a really amazing industry and I think a lot of you should look into it, we do have a few pieces of advice from people on my team. One of them is check your ego and embrace the team effort. There's a lot of skill sets that come together to create our work, and we all need each other to succeed. So I feel like that answers your question right now a little bit of, if you don't know exactly what you want to do, we all work together. And so if you come into advertising as one thing and you don't love it, just know that it's time to like learn from other people and pivot over slowly. And the last piece of advice that I have from our director on our team is to stay curious and never assume that your first answer is the right one. I think that's a really great piece of advice for anything, but even your question right now about changing your career, it's okay to not get it right the first time. Sorry, they're back. Hi. We're just
Okay.
staying nimble. We're getting a house tour on top of whatever else we're talking about today. So yeah, I really like her advice about knowing that your first answer might not be the right one. That's true at work, but also in your life. Your first career or your first anything might not be the right one.
Awesome. And then my last question for you before we jump into comments is, how can you best maximize getting jobs through LinkedIn?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. So I think what's important about LinkedIn is to make sure you're actually adding people who you genuinely have a connection to. I don't mean in the sense of love, but I mean, don't just add everyone. That's what I did when I first got LinkedIn. And then I realized, okay, I want to make sure everyone I'm adding and talking to are people who I genuinely know through someone or from some organization, so that there can be a lot more of a personal touch to it. And also it can be more feasible to use the people that you network with to actually get jobs, rather than just having a LinkedIn that's kind of a throwaway site you never go on. You can add whoever you want, but I've just noticed that when I intentionally know who I'm friend requesting, vice versa, there are people who I genuinely feel like I could reach out and say, hey, which leads me to my next answer for this question, is not being afraid to reach out. I know everyone in the industry is busy, but we all started as students and we all remember those days of wanting someone to give us a chance. So don't be afraid to reach out to people on LinkedIn. My biggest piece of advice is, if you do reach out, don't reach out in mass, and definitely don't make it obvious you've reached out in mass. Make your message pretty personal to the person you're reaching out to and make it very clear what you want from them. So make it clear that you want to learn more about their job. You want to know what you should put on your portfolio. Make it very clear in the message of what you would want to talk about if you met up, so that there's more actionable kind of plan for that person to reply to.
Awesome, thank you. And now we're gonna move on to our comments from the audience. And so our first question comes from Jennifer, and she said, "What is it like being a woman in the industry?"
So again, my early career when I was writing about health problems that I was decades away from having because I was the only woman, and writing an ad when I was an intern because I was the only woman at the agency, that was my first taste of how we do kind of assign male and female roles to different projects in advertising. And we assume like, oh, well, a woman or a man, which it was actually good that we had the foresight to know that like a man probably shouldn't be writing an ad about a female issue. But I do think it's important for all genders to chip in and all people of all backgrounds. And so as a woman in the in the industry, I have actually had really great experiences, but I know that's not the same for everyone. I love working at RGA because they're really, really great about making sure that all voices are heard. And we have a lot of female leaders in the office, which is really inspiring. But I think for example, Strategy, sometimes we interview people in real life for our research. If you ever go interview someone, bring a buddy. If you ever feel uncomfortable at work, please speak up. We can't have people staying silent, not only because it hurts you, but we can't improve as an industry if people stay silent. That goes for women, anyone. So I've had a great experience, but I think a lot of it is also just speaking up for yourself if you don't get dealt the same hand.
Right. I think that's really good advice, really encouraging people to talk more about what's actually happening. And I think that's like the best, I think that's the best part about like a workspace is when you feel comfortable enough to like speak up when it's not only just like a safe space, but like a brave space where you're brave enough to say what you want. And that's really what I like about E4 Youth as well, is that like you can pretty much if you have a concern or if you don't like something, like you can say it and they'll actually try to change it. So I think that's really dope. Our next question is from Karina, and she said, "Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome? If so, how did you deal with it?"
Yeah, I think all of us experience imposter syndrome just in our lives, and then work adds an extra layer because you're getting paid for something. For example, when you get your first job, you're probably going to be 22 and they start to pay you in your mind real money. And you're just like, wait a second, I hope they know I don't actually know what I'm doing. Like, I hope they are clear that I've never actually done this before. And it does kind of make you feel a little bit small and like, why are you guys counting on me? But I think what's really important to remember about imposter syndrome in the industry or in your career is it's not going to go away. You're going to feel that way at any level. But what's really great about careers is they don't expect you to know everything on your first day. You start out and they'll give you a task that's very manageable and very clear because you did very similar things in school, and you aren't going to be given these gargantuan tasks on your first day. You're going to be given small tasks and then they'll build you up. And another big thing for me in my imposter syndrome is having managers that really help celebrate you and help you see your value. Both at T3 and RGA, I've been blessed with the best bosses who are amazing people, and they always make sure that I know that I'm on the right track, my work is great, and if it's not, they tell me in a way that's very like, okay, here's where you could pivot, or here's what we can do better next time. So I don't think it's possible to not feel like an imposter, but I do think it's possible to help manage your expectations of what you need to perform at, the level you need to perform at, because you aren't expected to do everything.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that was really dope advice. I appreciate it. We also have another question from Ricardo. He said, "What are creative ways you have seen people present their portfolios?"
Yeah, so this is an interesting question for a strategist to answer because I have never had a portfolio. The idea of having a portfolio really stressed me out, and I tried to make like a janky website when I was at a few of my early internships, but then I got the website up and running and I was like, what do I put on this? What's hard for strategists is a lot of our work never sees the light of day. So it's hard for us to talk about it legally because companies don't necessarily want you to have all their brand secrets out in the world. Creative, it's like, yeah, a campaign went live, so now we can put it in our book. But strategy, it's much more gray, and it's hard. You don't want to give away like company secrets in an interview. And so I've never had a portfolio. I've always just had my resume, and then interviews are really critical in my discipline. What I did when I was interviewing at RGA is I did put together a few slides of like, here's some projects I worked on at T3. I totally blurred out like any numbers or any confidential information, but just explained at a really high level what sort of work I did. So that's from a strategy perspective. From a creative perspective, I think what's critical is to make sure that your portfolio is very clear in the role that you served. So for creative, if you're the visual person, make sure that your portfolio really highlights visually what you did. If you're a copywriter, make sure your portfolio really showcases all the copy that you were a part of. Rather than having the most beautiful, amazing portfolio site, I think it's important to just have your work have a justification and the strategy behind your work, because even creatives need to be strategic. And make sure that the projects you have on your portfolio are ones that you are really, really proud of. So kind of quality over quantity. But I'm not a creative, so I don't see a lot of portfolios because I'm not part of the creative hiring process. If any of you are truly, truly, truly desperate for more information on your portfolio, please reach out to me and I can make sure to either put you in touch with a creative or get you the answers you need.
Where can they reach out to you at?
Yeah, so you can find me. I think the easiest place would just be on LinkedIn. Just look up my name, Kaitlyn Haib, and message me there, and I can make sure that we get all of your questions and stuff answered.
All right, y'all heard it here first. Y'all better make those LinkedIn connections. I'm at her on LinkedIn too. Christy asks, what are some mistakes you might have made early in your career that you would advise up and coming talents to avoid?
I make mistakes every single day, some smaller, some bigger. I think when it comes to the actual work, a really big mistake to avoid is thinking that your opinion is the right one. I don't necessarily mean that working with other people I was overly opinionated, although I can be, but it was more approaching projects and just assuming I already knew the answer, which goes back to my director's advice I spoke about earlier, is like the first answer you think of isn't always the right one. So even though, for example, you might really think you know what a target audience wants, you might not actually know. So you need to dig a little bit deeper, especially if that audience doesn't look like you or live the same life as you. You can't assume they have the same interests as you or the same pain points as you. So that was something I had to learn early on, is always orient whatever I'm doing to the audience. Don't orient it to me. And that has saved a lot of headache in work. As far as like personal mistakes, there hasn't been. I think it's just staying focused is a really big one, and making sure that you don't procrastinate. Kind of all the classic advice you got in school remains true in work. And I think a really, really, really big mistake I made was, again, just having my identity mesh with my career and thinking that every promotion I got or everything I did at work was me. And I've only recently, in the past 6 months, really taken time to detach those things. So save yourself a lot of tears if you don't make that your identity early on.
Note taken. The next question we have is from Ricardo. He says, now that we're in a pandemic, what advice can you give to recent graduates looking for jobs?
Okay, so that one's definitely a scary one, right? Because the industry had a lot of layoffs in the beginning of the pandemic. So I think everyone who works in advertising has thought about their job security at least once in the past 6 months. So therefore, looking for a job is really scary. But what's interesting about the role you guys are in, or many of you who are graduating soon, is you are really integral to what agencies need. We all need young talent. We all need to evolve. We all need the next generation. And so don't look at it so much as like agencies would be you should beg them to have you. We're actively looking for the next generation. And so when you're looking for jobs in a pandemic, I think you should take note from what I had to do early on in my career of like, get creative, email whoever you have to email, really just stay like nose to the grind, make finding a job your job for now. But what that means too is set realistic boundaries for yourself. Maybe say, okay, from 9 to 5, I'll focus on jobs, but at 5, I'm going to turn it off and focus on me. Don't get sucked into the job search, but definitely make it a priority. So I think, like I said, email whoever you can, network with people on LinkedIn, maybe look into opportunities for like not volunteer work, because I know you're looking for a job, but ways that you can start to get creative with your career before another body tells you you have a career. For example, someone on my team, actually Amber, who spoke 2 weeks ago, before she was in the industry, she had her own fashion blog and she was doing a lot of work managing her own blog. And when you have a successful blog, advertisers reach out to you. And so you have to kind of work in the industry in that way. So if you're not getting a lot of traction through the traditional way of applying to jobs, chase your passion in other ways. And I promise it'll happen eventually. You'll get your break and it'll be great.
Period. Okay. I definitely feel like being creative with getting jobs in COVID is definitely the way to go.
Mm-hmm. And had I was on another talk similar to this one, and we had a hiring manager on, and she was saying she's seen people do TikToks of, I think Amber might have mentioned that too, of people just explaining on TikTok why they'd be a great applicant. So really think about too, the place you're applying to, what would they want to see? At RTA, we're an ad agency, so what's a really creative way you could apply? At TikTok, if you're applying for a job there, you should probably integrate a TikTok. So be really specific about each of your applications, and even your cover letter, your resume, they should all be tailored to where you're applying to. You should not be sending the same resume to every place.
Right. And then our last question from the audience is from Karina, and she said, how do you deal with stress?
Not well. I'm in therapy and I love it. I think that if you can afford it, and especially a lot of companies will now cover it with insurance, it's so helpful to get an outsider's perspective on how to better handle stress. I think a really big one when it comes to advertising is just remembering it's just advertising. We're not saving people's lives. We're not doing anything that should actually constitute real stress. We're having fun. We're creating things for culture. And anytime I start to feel myself get really stressed, I just have to take a walk or breathe or be honest with my team, like, guys, this is too much, which has taken me a really long time to admit, because it feels like admitting failure. When you tell your boss or your teammates, like, I have too much work on my plate, you feel kind of like you're underperforming. But then at the end of the day, I remind myself, this isn't why I'm on this earth. So I need to protect my heart, protect my time, protect my mind, and really do what's best for me. So I mean, this is so cliche, but exercise, and I'm not a big exerciser. That's not like my passion. I hate gyms, but even just walking or stretching or just getting outside, that helps so much to not feel like you're chained to your desk, especially when we're living in our offices. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. That definitely makes a lot of sense. But we're coming to the end of our time. But I really appreciate you so much for all of your really practical advice. It really means a lot, and you gave a lot of really good tips. It made me think about a lot of stuff that I didn't think about, and honestly, I feel more relieved now. Based off the answers that you were giving, because I was like, dang, like, this make a lot more sense, like, because I feel like going into like the job place is like scary. So I appreciate it a lot.
Last thing, what we have to remind ourselves, because I'm still young, there's still people way older than me, way more successful than me, that I get intimidated by. So what we have to remember is you guys are just younger versions of us. We aren't different species. We're just older. And so never feel like when you start your job or this industry or careers are this like unattainable thing. It's all smoke and mirrors. Like we all say what we want to say to make ourselves feel important, and we are, but we're also that same like kid or student or college student. We're all the same people. We just have different titles and different years under our belt. So you will be me one day. You will be even more important than me one day. And you'll realize that you really wish you wouldn't have stressed so much.
Dang. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. But all right, you guys, we had another awesome virtual talk. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. You guys asked a lot of questions, and for me, they were answered. So hopefully you feel more comfortable now too. If you guys want to hear more virtual talks like these, make sure you check us out every Wednesday at noon. We go live and we talk to awesome speakers just like Kaitlyn. Also, if you're interested in being a part of our CLA program, which is our Creative Leadership Academy, or our Music Legacy program, make sure you check out our website at e4youth.org. We are still taking applications for that, and you get paid to learn and experience more creative jobs. So I'll see y'all later. Bye.